What's up, hockey fans? Welcome to another edition of Just Winging It. This is our 49th episode. We've got a big surprise coming up for our 50th, but we've wanted to get this next guest on for a long time. We've had a lot of fans ask, what's Mike Modugno up to? Former broadcaster of your Kalamazoo Wings is our guest here on episode 49. Mike Modugno, thanks for doing this.
It's the Joel Martin episode of...
I know.
I had to be part of 49.
I'm glad you said it because I was thinking it. I was like, number 49, why didn't I ask Joel Martin to come? Push you up to, 46, 45?
I would say after Joel Martin, I've been part of Joel Martin's games more than him, but that would make no sense. So I'm going to say it feels good to be part of the 49 episode.
Let's answer the fans' question for them. What is Mike Modugno up to? What are you up to these days?
I was going to ask you to say. I don't even know what I'm up to. I'm looking at doing a lot of different things. Working with the USPS, and it seems like I'm coaching a lot of youth baseball.
Okay.
So with my 11-year-olds team. So those are the main two things I'm going. And like I said, the pandemic really hasn't slowed anything down, and apparently my lifestyle has been quarantined. So it's nothing's changed. So I guess you can categorize the quarantine for the last 15, 20 years here.
Less of an adjustment for you than some other people had to make for the pandemic.
There's nothing.
How about the rest of the family?
My oldest son probably had the biggest adjustment because he was going to college. And his dorm room, which he was at Grand Valley and able to go to school there, but his dorm room was a glorified computer lab. All his classes were online, so he got a chance to see the campus, but not a chance really to interact. So it's kind of a tough freshman year for him. But when you have nothing else to do, you could study and get your grades up, which he did. So it could have been worse.
From my understanding, baseball is still very much a part of his life on his way up to Grand Valley, though, right? Is that part of the reason?
He's a little bit of an off year just because of for that portion of it. He's hoping to get back with them in September, I believe. That would be the next tryout to get through it. But because of the NCAA and giving the extra year to players, majority of the senior class returned back, so he wasn't able to fully join there. So he was going to try to do club, but the club team didn't play because of the pandemic. So
now it's a reboot.
It's a reboot. Just hit the refresh. He's helping with the 11-year-olds team, which the 11-year-old's not too fond of because if he thought I was tough, the older brother's not really much easier.
That was my next question was you coached Mikey when he was younger, and now you're coaching Mario's team, and I know baseball is a big part of your family's lives. What's the most rewarding part of that, being the coach of your son's teams? And I guess, are you that type of coach that's going to be extra hard on your son or extra forgiving?
I'm going to go with yes. I would answer I'm more forgiving.
Okay.
They will not answer that same question
Gotcha.
out there. But no, I think it's I'm a little tougher on them just because the perception is you got to be but at the end of the day he's 11 years old. He's there to have fun, learn the game, and hopefully get better. And then whether it be little league or whatever it is, when I'm coaching a team, technically I have 10 kids, 11 kids on the team. Right, they all become your child for a portion of it. So it's been fun. The most rewarding part is getting to see them play and seeing them grow and seeing them interact and not missing those games. So that's been the most rewarding part of it. The disappointment would be for the older one that his senior season at Norwich gets canceled because of with COVID and gets a little delay here. So that's the tougher part of it, but. Whether I was coaching or not, that would be a little tough to get through.
Now, you guys are big, or your sons are big Padres fans. Where did that begin? Because you guys are from upstate New York originally.
The brainwashing started young. That's that for them. So I grew up, as you mentioned, in upstate New York, and other than the hometown team, the Syracuse Orange, every other New York team I despised for a variety of reasons. But it seemed like when I was watching TV when I was younger, the Padres were always playing the Braves on the Superstation, and Tony Gwynn just caught my eye and became a huge Tony Gwynn fan, and the rest is history. Also a little bit of a Toronto Blue Jay fan, just because of the AAA affiliate was in Syracuse at that point. Yep. And growing up in Little League, we had guys like Fred McGriff, helping out with some of the Little League teams, Tony Fernandez, and those guys. So I became a Jays fan, but the guy that I was really enamored with growing up was Tony Gwynn. So I even got to see his 3,000th hit in Montreal, Never, ironically, been to San Diego, but we try to catch a Padre game every year.
Gone too soon, Tony Gwynn, one of
Absolutely.
the all-time greatest hitters. You spent 13 years as the voice of the Kalamazoo Wings, the longest tenure of any broadcaster that's come through here, and there's been a lot of great ones. When you walk back into this building again, what are some of the first things that come to your mind? Some of the memories? Is it instant nostalgia?
It is. It's a lot of it is the coworkers and the fans that you kind of remember when you walk through the concourse, and you know, even in past when I've caught a game here, you see, you know, really what's become family members for 13 years when I was here. My wife's family, my family are in upstate New York. You know, between Booster Club and non-Booster Club fans that have been here, we've built some strong relationships that have carried through, you know, since leaving here. But, you know, the player relationships, but just, you know, things that have happened. Like you walk through the concourse, I remember, you know, different promotional things that we taped and things. So those are the things that pop up here, just the memories in certain parts of the building.
The first one I wanted to ask you about was the Colonial Cup Championship, which you were a part of that year. The team had won 2 Turner Cups in the late 70s, and then there was that long wait before the Colonial Cup in the UHL in 06. I asked Joel Martin about it recently. I asked Pam Shebest about it recently, and their stories got me thinking, what does Mike Modugno remember about that season? What are some of the favorite memories?
So there's a couple different things in there. First, Paul Picard was on a mission to win the championship, as he was every year, but wanted to prove a point to the UHL, which was the United League at the time, that, you know, Danbury and a few other teams were over the cap, and we're going to compete with them. We're going to show you on the books what our team is going to be. Mm-hmm. So he put a team together that is very close to an AHL team as you can be. In fact, you know, a guy like Tyler Renette, you can IMD or hockey database him up and look up the stats, was out for the championship game because of a healthy scratch. But, you know, you had guys like Tim Turner that were on the bench that would have contributed on any team that year in a playoff run. So to show the league what that was point number one. Then you had to back it up. And, you know, we get to, you know, stretch all year long. We just felt we hit our groove all season long. But it's the strange things. Like Mark Reeds and I, a little bit of a lull in the season. We go to Kansas City, I believe it was Kemper Arena, and we started doing interviews in obscure places in there. So that one happened to be the one that started it. Or actually, that continued out there. But we went Muskegon. He would used to do the games on, or the pregame interviews on bicycles, both stationary, and so I'd have to keep up with him as he rolled along. I believe Kemper that year was near Thanksgiving, if I recall, because we continued it a couple years, but was in the coach's room. But right off the coach's room, there was they had a bathroom. For whatever reason, 2 toilets in the bathroom, no dividing wall. We both had pants on, but we were both just, what's the most obscure place in Kemper Arena that we could do this interview? And so those are the type of things there. And then, you know, the strange things that happen in the playoffs. Lucas Drake gets 5 goals, 5-point night again. Actually, a 7-point night, 5 goals, 2 assists against Rockford in the playoffs. You get the championship game. A lot of the memories there are off the ice. The flying over LaGuardia or over New York City to LaGuardia. First time to New York City since 9/11 for me, and I'm sure majority of the guys on the team. And it was just. It was a talkative plane the whole way through. Not really about the game, just it was just there. But as soon as we get ready for landing, when we look out the window and you see, you know, ground zero, it became quiet. Not just because of the hockey team, but everyone on the flight. You drive up. We played Danbury. Danbury did not lose more than 1 game in a row at home all season long. We would have to win. The gauntlet there. We'd have to win 3 to win it because the series was tied at 1 going there. And then in game 1, the little bit of the racial slur, not really a little bit, a lot of racial slurs to Joel Martin with the T-shirts, and just seeing Joel's demeanor. And Joel pretty calm, kept calm, but you saw a different look in his face. I remember talking to Pam Shebest. I think I said the series isn't going back to Kalamazoo. Now, I didn't think Lucas Drake would have needed another overtime goal in there, but Those are the things that are in there. And then even the championship, after the championship goal, being yelled at by Danbury fans because we brought enough microphone cable. So if you haven't been to the Danbury Ice Arena, it's the equivalent of doing the game at either Wings West or out there. So, I mean, it's close where you can do, you just drop it over the glass. It's almost like going from, at the annex and just dropping it down. So we had enough microphone cable to do it. So as soon as the game ends, you can hear the guy, the guys, well, what if we fall? What if we trip? I'm like, okay, what if I just got this on, I'm recording it right now, so thank you for my lawsuits being settled. So we go out there, Mark Villeneuve retires on the ice pretty much in that interview. We get done, we call all the newspapers. I go into the locker room. Mike Manley, as soon as I walk in, sprays me with champagne. And as soon as I get the champagne out of my eyes, I see season ticket holders Joe Vanderbilt kind of exhausted next to Joel Martin, you didn't know who finished the game in the net, type thing. Yeah. So it was just that surreal thing that the championship, if it happened in Kalamazoo, the fans would have gotten that opportunity, and it would have been nice to have a packed house celebrating the championship here. But that unique experience for a franchise and an organization that had been waiting so long to get their third title made it nice for the fans.
What amazes me the most, and I get the chills hearing you describe some of those things just because how special it is for any team that wins a championship and those experiences, hearing Joel and Pam's story from their point of view and some of the things that Joel had to go through, and then hearing your story. What amazes me is the way the fans welcomed the team back in the wee hours of the morning at the airport, right?
So we got back out there. We're in Detroit, flying back from LaGuardia. We get back to New York, or from Danbury. We got the police escort out of Danbury right away, and we flew out I think 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. To come back home. We got the news that all the TV stations are in place, everything's there, and I remember telling Nick Bootland, because he was going to bring the cup out, that there's going to be a lot of people there. And he's blowing it off there's not going to be a lot of people there. I just said, Nick, there's a lot of people. We get off the plane. You could start hearing the noise, and this is before the renovation at the airport. Yeah. So as we're getting closer, we hear the noise. I kind of peek out, and I go, Nick, there's a lot of people. And so the whole baggage claim area, as far as the eye can see, even going to the outside, is the airport's full. Yeah. So seeing that response as Nick has the cup lifted over his head, similar to what he did on when they won the championship in Danbury. And having the fans kind of walk by and kind of touch it and everything else is also one of those memories that kind of sticks out even more than any part of that game.
I'm a big promo night guy, and in minor league sports you have to be. And there were some promos that you guys did back in your era that were groundbreaking at the time. But Kalamazoo is obviously known for green ice, for pink ice. Both started in the 80s. Yep. You were here for the very first Orange Ice game for Halloween. And I've read the stories and old articles about you and your family, the Scooby-Doo crew. For the fans that don't know, first off, walk us through that story, if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
And what it was like to be a part of the first Orange Ice game.
So this is all Jim Berlew's fault. I'm going to start it off with that because Jim was big on, we're going to have a promo night. We got to live the promo night. If it's going to be Orange Ice, the whole staff's getting costumes. We're all going all in, which then led to my wife going, if we're going to be, if you're going to go all in, let's go all in, right? So I'm like, perfect. Well, we're all going to do this. So what do we, then it's the decision of what we're going to do. So the easiest way to back it out was, what costume is my son going to wear? And then we can kind of figure it out by then. So he decided, and I think he was 3 at the time, 3 or 4 years old at the time, decided he was going to go as Scooby-Doo. So at that small costume, it kind of looks like Scrappy-Doo, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So then I'm like, if he's going to do that, I'm going to go full Scooby-Doo.
Okay.
With the just the face showing, full dog costume. We'll throw a K-Wing jersey on it, and we'll do that. So then my wife says, well, if you guys are going to do that, I was thinking Velma. I was thinking a lot of different things. I was not thinking Shaggy. The security of Wing Stadium was not thinking Shaggy.
Okay.
So I'm doing the game, end of the first period. So Mikey's walking the concourse with my wife dressed as full costume. So Tom Flynn, who's head of security, another security guard, come up to me and go, Mike, we have a problem. I'm like, what's the problem? I think your son's with someone, we don't know who it is. And so I look down to the concourse, and they have someone right down there. They're pointing at it. I'm like, Tom, that's my wife. He's like, no, it's not. I said, no, she's dressed as Shaggy. She had the whiskers going. She went full.
You could see where they'd be concerned.
They would be concerned. But I'm like, so the good news is, and the good and bad news is, my son from that point on could not get away with anything in the stadium because everyone was looking at him and then going back to that family atmosphere between fans and everything else. Nothing was going to happen.
Yep.
But I didn't know what kind of calls we were going to get after that. So Orange Ice got me a little in trouble. But that also started a very good or bad tradition depending on what side of the costume I was on.
Any other favorite costumes after that?
So I went full Ernie. Okay. We went Sesame Street one year, and we didn't tell Nick, and I had the whole Ernie head. So there's a picture of Nick somewhere, I think, on Google or somewhere on the internet that you could see his reaction with me with the record deck, and that is the first time he got to see the costume.
Oh, awesome!
I think Seinfeld night, it was Pirate night, different than Orange Ice, but it was Pirate night. I did not want to dress as a pirate, so I wore the puffy shirt from Seinfeld.
Yep,
had to do that. We did Angry Birds one time, and I'm sure there's another couple bad things. Well, Elvis night. I went late Elvis usually.
Oh,
I didn't go early Elvis. I went late Elvis.
Okay.
So
those are pretty good.
Those are pretty good, but also pretty bad depending on your point of view on it.
I think my best ever was Blake Shelton. Had the full mullet and the plaid shirt. Last year was a lumberjack. That was credit to my wife. It was a last minute decision. Ran up to Target and just got the whole. So if you have any good ideas that you didn't get to use,
we can talk. We can get those sides out there for you.
Looking for some more ideas. Speaking, let's stay with the orange theme for a second. You brought up Syracuse earlier, so we're going to stay in the orange theme. Syracuse Orange, you're a diehard fan. You're from the area originally, so we don't have to explain that part of it.
That's very simple. Yeah.
If someone asks how much of a diehard fan you are of Syracuse, how would you describe it?
First of all, if anyone has to ask, they don't know me that well. But that's everything. I mean, I would think that there's orange in the veins. I mean, that's just. I mean, we stop what we're doing, when the softball team plays. Where I'm watching over the weekend, Memorial Day, I'm watching the women's lacrosse team try to win a national championship. So we literally stop what we're doing. Yeah. We'll not go on vacation. We will set vacation dates to whatever's going on at that time. But it's growing up. That's the institution. That's the major league team in Syracuse. That's what everyone does.
They had a pretty good run this year with Buddy Boeheim. There's been other basketball stars and football stars that I can think of off the top of my head. Basketball, for starters, Jerry McNamara, Johnny Flynn, of course, Carmelo Anthony, can't forget him, Hakeem Warwick from the year they went to the finals against Kansas there. And then football, Donovan McNabb, Dwight Freeney, Marvin Harrison. If you had to pick a favorite athlete, basketball and football, what direction would you go?
Basketball, it's going to be Dwayne Washington. It's a tie for two reasons. So, my first player I can remember watching at Syracuse is Sonny Spera. Mm-hmm. Played early '80s there. I think now he's a dentist in the Binghamton area. But just watching him play, he was like kind of a six-man off the bench for most of that time. Yep. But just gave the effort. Just a guy that did the little things right. He played on some very good teams at Syracuse, but growing up mid-'80s at that university, it has to be Dwayne the Pearl Washington. And then to get to play wheelchair basketball with Pearl was amazing. So that would be my basketball one. Football, probably McNabb. It would be up there. Eric Dungy up there as well, but for more recent times. But McNabb just had that ability to do things, and same thing with Eric Dungy, that he was just able to do things at that position that few have been able to do.
McNabb pre-Vikings, I'm assuming.
McNabb pre-Eagles.
I'm a Vikings fan. Pre-Eagles. Okay.
Pre-Eagles.
Back to your career here, there's a couple unique things that I had done. It doesn't take a lot of research to figure out, but Nick Bootland as a player, Nick Bootland as a coach. You're one of the few guys, the only guy here that got to cover both in that transition. What was that like in your relationship with Nick as it progressed through his final years playing the game to when he took over as bench boss?
Nick was a prima donna as a player. No, just kidding. Nick, I'm kidding. No, Nick. nothing really changed. I mean, Nick was. I always viewed him, even besides the captain, he was a coach on the ice.
Yeah.
I mean, especially that last season in the IHL before he became coach. I mean, I remember near the end of the season, him and Glenn DeTulio, who ironically became a head coach as well in the SPHL, just calling timeouts. They're handing out the white erase board out there, and they're drawing up plays.
Yeah.
The way he handled his business out there was amazing. And normally, especially when a player becomes a head coach at the same team, you wonder how that transition is going to be from the boys to a head coach. You never worried about that with Nick Bootland.
Really?
Because he separated. If there was an issue, you went to Nick. And Nick would, if you're the coach, you went to Nick. Nick took care of whatever the issue was. So you could see that was still going to happen, and that's why I think that's the success he had right away through that. Still the fastest man I've ever seen fall asleep on a bus. I think we always joke there was a button somewhere on his head up here because he could just hit the window, out.
That hasn't changed.
That hasn't changed. Good. So, I think he probably stayed up a little bit later as a coach just because he wanted to look at the video and everything else. As a player, not so much. Yeah. But no, he was the constant professional, and I think that carried over. That's when I think of Nick Bootland. When I guess the best compliment from my journalism standpoint, when someone says, when you think of captains of a sport, I think of Ron Francis, I think of Nick Bootland.
Wow. And
that's really the best compliment I can give him.
Yeah, that's perfectly said. You mentioned the IHL, and we talked about the UHL. You also were a part of the transition into the ECHL, the 3 different leagues. The only broadcaster in K-Wings history, I think, that's been a part of 3 different leagues. Biggest difference, I guess, if you just point blank could pick out a few.
The UHL and IHL, not really. I mean, really just became more of a geographic footprint, right? And that was there was a sound theory behind it. Close rivalries, you can get fans to, if they wanted to go to Port Huron, they wanted to go to a Muskegon game, they wanted to go to a Fort Wayne game, you can get the fans more involved. And I know you've talked to some of the alumni back in the original IHL days, and you hear the stories from when we used to go to Fort Wayne and when we used to go to Muskegon. Not to bring it to that level, but that's really what the hope was for the rivalries, right? Sure. That you would have that out there. And you could keep players, some of those veteran players a little bit longer with how the roster was set up.
Sure.
The ECHL became, and you always heard about, okay, it's the next step to the NHL or to the HL and closer to the NHL. I remember the first game in Reading because I didn't get to do any preseason games because my wife was we're getting ready to. We did a couple games again. That was the following year. So I missed the preseason in Alaska.
Rapid fire questions for you because, and I like to think superlatives because you spent so much time here. Okay. You saw so many players come through. And I just want your 2 cents on if you had to choose. And some of these are tough, some of them are pretty easy. But here we go. The best pure goal scorer that you saw here in Kalamazoo.
Pure goal scorer. I'm going to go with Corey Carlander.
Okay. Best all-around player.
Yanni Gord.
Toughest player. This is a good one. Or fighter, if you will. Enforcer.
Okay, so if it's enforcer. The size doesn't make, because remember, there's a difference in the league.
Let's split them up. Enforcer and then pound for pound toughest player.
Toughest player pound for pound. I don't know how he did it was Tyler Willis because very few times I've seen a guy's mouth be able to back up the checks he was trying to cash.
Yeah.
All 5'6" or 7 of whatever he was could back it up and do whatever. So that much respect to Willie on that, and it really would back up and would protect any of his teammates. So I would say that would be the toughest all-around player. Overall toughest player, just strength and everything else. Ruben Ender would be up there too. I mean, he played a short time with us, but I would say he would be up there.
Team that you just love to hate?
Fort Wayne.
Yeah, that hasn't changed either. Favorite city to travel to?
Had some good times in Alaska, but that's just because of the finals and that trip there. Yeah. We'll go with either Orlando. We'll give it to the Florida cities, Estero or Orlando, just because of you had a day off. You could probably hit some golf balls and do some other stuff. Plus the weather. We usually played there in January or February and got rid of the snow. Well, not even the beach, because it just, you had snow on the ground here. You go there. I think all but one of our trips we had better weather. One time it was actually colder in Florida than what it was here. So,
all-time favorite promo night?
Education Day.
Yeah.
Education Day, because those kids made more sound than I've ever heard in this building. Also, they booed the hell out of Chris Chelios out of this building. And I don't think they knew who Chris Chelios was. I don't think they knew who Sean Avery was. And the fact that the biggest fight in that game happened with me yelling with those NHL stars almost in this room that we're in right now, certainly makes it one of my favorite promos.
We don't have to go too long on it, but we have to pause. Is that a story you can share, at least the bullet points version of the little almost came to blows with Chris Chelios and the NHL stars?
Oh, absolutely. I can. There's not really. It wasn't really it's a PG story to start with.
Right.
But, so that was the year of the lockout. That was the year that they played for the love of the game. So they played a couple games in Motor City. They were playing for the Motor City Mechanics that year. So they played one game in Motor City. They played a game in Flint, and the rule was that they were going to do press conferences after every game.
Yep.
So no different here. I got it cleared through their PR department in Motor City. We're going to have it here. We have Wood TV. We have WWMT. We have pretty much every of the media outlets coming to the postgame. Game ends. I went ended as early as humanly possible for the postgame show. Ran downstairs. My intern at that time was as white as a ghost and goes, "Mike, they just left the building."
Oh.
So I run outside, and they're in, going back to the Scooby-Doo reference, it looked like the mystery van. They didn't even drive with the team that. They drove a bluish-green van, separate. It was just like Hatcher, Avery, Smolinski, and Chelios. They were all together. The rest of the team was there. So I talked to their PR guy, and I said, "You going to bring them upstairs?" And Chelios was walking by, and he goes, "Chris, you going to go upstairs?" "No." "Mike, I tried everything I was going to." I'm like, "Are you kidding me right now?"
Yeah.
So at that point, I had nothing to lose.
Mm-hmm.
I go and give my 2 cents worth, which I don't know if I would do it today.
Might be one of those things that could be fireable, potentially.
Well, not necessarily, because I think Paul would have had my back in that situation.
For
Paul would probably have said worse at that point.
Yeah.
He would understand, but it's one of those things that I just don't know. Like you said, just the middle of it, trying to be professional, and I've always said, treat everything like you're NHL. Sure. I don't know if that was my NHL moment at that point. But so I start walking away, and then Joe Burton played on that team as well. Joe Burton played the most games in minor league history at that point. Yep. Curran actually passed him at that point, but Joe was the most games in the Central League. He goes, "Mike, I'll go upstairs and do the interview." I'm like, "Joe, I appreciate it, but it's not the same."
This is what we promised, right?
Yeah. So he understood that, and it's just as I'm about to go upstairs going, how am I going to tell everyone out here? I hear the PR guy again go, "Okay, you're only going to get Chris, and you only get him for 5 minutes." So whatever I said worked, but I got one of them, not all of them. The caveat and the best part of this whole story is Chris does the press conference, amazing job. The reporter from Wood goes, "I'm surprised it's here. He doesn't even do the press conferences with the Red Wings." And I'm like, really? This is where but that was the brawl in the parking lot, so to speak, the verbal brawl in the parking lot.
Speaking of the NHL, the playoffs are going on right now as we speak. If you could pick one team to root for to win it all, who would that be?
Well, as a Penguin fan, hockey season ended last week.
As a Wild, as a Minnesota guy, we were out too. So,
you know what? I think the story for Montreal would be nice, but I'm going to go with. I still think it's going to be. I'm going to go on the limb and say the Islanders.
Oh, I love it. I'm going
to go on the limb saying it's just because they beat Pittsburgh, I'm going to give them the course and see if they can, with inexperienced goaltending and everything else.
That'd be a great story.
See if they can do it in the last year at Nassau Coliseum.
Yeah. If you had to pick one Kalamazoo goalie to start a Game 7, and it cannot be Joel Martin, who's your goalie?
In my time frame here?
Yes.
Jeff Raynor.
Jeff Rayner. There you go. Love it. Rock, paper, scissors champion. Okay, I wrote this down because we found an old video on YouTube. The fans have all seen it. Fascinating to me that we had 2 future Stanley Cup champions, both playing for the K-Wings at the same time, Jordan Binnington and Yanni Gourde, that were in the finals of the rock, paper, scissors tournament.
Which led to the finals of the Stanley Cup. You think about that one for a second.
How amazing is that?
Prepared them for it.
I know. I think so, too. Pressure. I think so, too. I mean, you were a part of that whole fun experiment. Who's the best of that bunch? Or what was the best part of doing that, I guess? Maybe is a better question.
Jordan Binnington took it way too serious.
Oh, I don't buy that. He's not a serious guy.
Like, I still think he went home and looked at the video just to make sure of how it went down. But Yanni was having fun with it, if I remember correctly. But it was Binnington, his seriousness of it. Like, every time you throw something down, the outtakes are actually probably funnier than what was used.
Oh, if we could find those, that would be gold. You know, maybe that prepared Binnington for future press coverage in some of his interviews with the Blues, where they asked if he was nervous. He said, "Do I look nervous?" Started in Kalamazoo.
It started with Rock.
Yeah. Okay. 3-on-3 overtime or shootout? What would you choose?
3-on-3.
I'm with you there. I would get rid of the shootout altogether, though. I'm old school. I would go with the ties.
I don't mind it. I understand the league's money. Let home people go home happy and people go home earlier. I'd like to go, even if you went 4-on-4, then 3-on-3, then shootout. Just be out there instead of just going 3-on-3 to shootout. But yeah, I like the 3-on-3 better.
Favorite place to go in town that you'd bring the family to?
Well, you got to go with the best burgers in town, right? You got to go with Nisker's.
I knew you were going Nisker's. I love Niskers. Yep.
You got to give Lou a little shoot out there.
We give him he's been on 17 episodes of Just Winging It at this point, but that's okay. It's worth it. It's great food. Thing that you missed most about this gig, working in hockey?
Just the relationships.
Yeah.
The games itself, the bus rides can get very old very quick. I think you said it best with one of your takes with as far as when you're going job by job in there, that you're getting done at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning on things that people don't get to see, and then you're back here at 9 a.m. doing the same day. So that can get kind of old kind of quick, but the relationships of the players, they had the reunion here of the championship team, which I can't believe still that it was 15 years just the other day. But you can just, time stood still, in essence. So when you haven't seen them forever, you see them again. It's those kind of relationships that you'll just remember.
2 more quick ones for you. What do you have in store? What's next for the family? Now that the pandemic is starting to wrap up, we're getting back to a little bit of normalcy again. Do you guys have any fun trips planned?
Well, you got to throw out September 4th, Syracuse versus Ohio at Athens against the Bobcats, which you kind of threw that right to me.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And I guess I got to say that I got to plan on seeing my family back in Syracuse sometime.
Did you guys just go on a trip to Wrigley? We were
thinking about it. Yeah, we were talking about it. We didn't get a chance to because scalpers kind of made that even.
Brutal.
And I think the capacity at Wrigley changes. We're doing this the week of right after Memorial Day. Was going to increase on June 1st. We were looking at Memorial Day.
Okay.
So the tickets were limited and at a price that the TV was fine to watch the game.
Yeah, I understand
We still may go to Cincinnati to watch the Padres. We try to get the Padres once a year.
Yeah.
So that may be our best opportunities to go to Cincinnati, and there's worse places to visit than Cincinnati. So that's another good town.
Last one is you obviously decided to stay in Kalamazoo for a reason. Your family calls Kalamazoo home now. What is it about this city? A lot of players stay here when their career's done. Is it something you guys see yourselves living here a long time?
Potentially. Literally, I've lived here more than almost anywhere else I've lived. Well, other than Syracuse. This has been number 2, and we're catching that total. It came down to my oldest son was going into high school. Yeah. There was a couple other offers on the table. Just didn't seem like it was right to go out there, especially when you're heading into high school, and it's tough to make that transition, meet new people and everything else. And then on top of that, you have the Kalamazoo Promise. Yeah. So when you have the Kalamazoo Promise, and roughly you're looking at the golden ticket in essence. If this was like Willy Wonka, that would be what it is, right? It's almost 100, depending on the school, 120 grand that you're looking at. It's tough to turn away that gift horse, and then really, time he graduates, it'd almost be time for the other one to go into high school, and and almost do the same thing. So I don't know if we planned on being here as long. I can tell you we didn't plan on being here as long as we certainly did. I wouldn't have said 13 years as with Kalamazoo when this all started, but it feels a little like Syracuse, a little less snow than Syracuse, but a little colder too. So it's similar.
It's funny you mentioned Golden Ticket because for the fans watching, remember Golden Ticket. You're going to have to wait a few months. Promo calendar's coming out. That's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to ruin anything, but Golden Ticket might be a word you see. You didn't know I was going to say that.
I didn't know you were saying that.
You brought it up, so it's a perfect transition. It's a teaser, if you will.
It's a teaser.
For months down the road. Mike, thanks so much for doing this. We really appreciate it. I know the fans have been looking to hear from you for a while now, and I'm glad that we can make this work. Thank you.
My pleasure.
All the best. Mike Modugno, everybody.